Hello guys, good day. No, actually good evening. Good evening na ngayon habang nire-record ko to. Anyway, um, for this lecture, we will be covering the part 2 of our subject on forensic photography. No? Specifically, we're going to be talking about the history of police photography. Uh, Guys, sabihin ko na, for this lecture, we are going to use forensic photography and police photography interchangeably. No? So, I know I distinguish the two terms, no, but for this lecture, let us assume that they have the same meaning with each other. Okay? So, on today's topic, we are going to be talking about the following topics there. No? Ano naman dyan sa presentation natin. First, we're going to be talking about the overview on police photography. No? And next to that, we have the history of police photography. We're going to talk also about Alfred Bertillon. Then we would include crime photography or crime scene photography in our term right now. No? Lastly, we're going to talk about the significance of police photography, no? To the field of law enforcement, of course. No? So ayan guys, no, since I laid down naman what will be the topic for this lecture, let us immediately jump into our discussion. Okay, so first is let's have an overview with regards to the concept of forensic photography. I do believe I was able to define forensic photography naman, no? But as I've stated, for this lecture, we are using them interchangeably. So, forensic photography, as we know of, is a branch of forensic science, no? Which the coverage of such a topic involves the documentation of both the suspect, convicted criminals, and even recording of the crime scene, no? At pag pinag-usapan na natin on the crime scene, that involves also the different evidence that are present into the crime scene. So, lahat ng ito guys, are the coverage of the application of forensic photography. No? So, as we have stated, the preservation or taking of image of the suspect, no? Of the victim, the criminals, and the crime scene and evidence found therein. So, that's what we know of with regards to the concept of forensic photography. Ngayon, if we're going to talk about how forensic photography came about, this is actually a result of the so-called modernization of our criminal justice system. No? Nagkaroon na kasi tayo ng modernization during the late 19th century, no? Where since the government had already come with a better professionalized way of recording data, no? And when we are talking about data, no, especially when we are relating that to criminal justice system, then we know for a fact that the subject of the criminal justice system are mostly on accused or criminals and so on. So nagkaroon na tayo ng professionalism, no, with regards on how we collect the data from this from this group of individuals, no? So, napasali na nga dyan guys yung pag-take natin ng photograph, no? As we included, diba, we have the concept of personal identification, no? The Bertillonage system and so on. Then, at the same time, the very concept of photography was already developing at the time, so they included that as part of the data that are being collected for those who will be confined in prison. So that's the first one, no? Because of the professionalization of the government, no? Then we also have the incorporation of science into the procedures of police and judiciaries, no? So we know for a fact that actually the concept of photography was more likely developed for the purpose of artistic matter, no, for art, no, yun yung pinaka-concept niya talaga for its development. And of course, because of the progress that not only in the field of photography but in the concept in the criminal justice itself, no, they included already the very concept of photography to recording data and so on. Then that gives birth now to the field forensic photography. No? Although we are talking about professionalization, modernization here, it's not yet fully developed kasi dito pa lang siya nag-i-start. So it's a long way to go before we could come up actually with the better scenario that we are in right now with the use of photography in the field of forensic. No? So yun yung two factors kung bakit napasali na yung forensic or bakit na-develop yung concept ng forensic photography. It's because of the professionalization that is undergoing, the changes that are existing already in the field of criminal justice system, with regards to the collection of data, and as well as the incorporation of science, scientific methods in the procedures of the police operations, and as well as the decision making, the decision making that the judiciaries are coming in. So they had accepted it as an evidence. They started to view it as a reliable means of recording incident that has something to do with the case in dispute, So yun yung mga factors kung bakit nagkaroon tayo ng tinatawag nating forensic photography right now, Ngayon, if we're going to look at least siguro tingnan lang natin, silipin lang natin the history of forensic photography, then we would notice that the earliest evidence of photographic documentation happened actually in Belgium and Denmark in as early as year 1843, to 44. That's in Belgium, then 1851, in Denmark. So here we have a data that actually proves that at this early age, people, are actually trying or had actually come up with an idea of using the very concept of photography in recording prison inmates, But of course, as we have stated, no matter how we mention the word modernization and development here, this is just the start, kaya hindi pa siya perfect. So as you can see, during the early days, though we know already the concept of photography, then we are just in the experimentation process on how we could take advantage of the so-called photography, How could we take advantage of that and use that in criminal identification, and the things like that. So here they started already using taking photograph of those prison inmates. So that's actually a good development. However, due to the cost, yung syempre mahal pa noon ang mag-take ng photograph, mahal pa ang camera, because hindi pa siya totally developed, nagkakaroon pa lang tayo ng experimentation phase. How can we use this in as a how do you call this, parang aid, in criminal identification, things like that. So walang standardization, there's no standard way of utilizing photograph in taking photograph of those inmates or those criminals before. So wala pa tayong standard means. Now, that's when Alfred Bertillon proposed something to remedy these things. However, tatalakayin natin yan mamaya. So, going back to the history, the concept of mugshot actually developed from these years, 1843 hanggang 1851. Since ang first target ng photography before are inmates, sila yung una kumbagang ginamitan ng mga ganito, ng photography in criminal justice system. So that gives birth now to the concept of mugshot that we know of today, di ba? Yung halimbawa, bago ka ikulong, as part of the booking process, bago ka ikulong, kukunan ka muna ng picture so that they have an existing data at their hand, at their disposal, just in case there's a need that will arise. No? So, this is the birth of the mugshot. No? Dito na nagsimula. However, as we have stated, wala pang standardization. Walang measurement, walang mga ganun. So, just random people, no? It could be the jail guards, police officers, or even some commercial photographers are the one who are taking photograph of those inmates. So, wala pa lang tayong specific individuals or group of individuals that are really in charge in taking photographs of the inmates, and as well as the process on how it should be made. No? Basta kunan lang sila ng photograph and so on. Walang standard light, walang standard measurement, walang standard procedure, wala pa, no? Pero yung konsepto ng mugshot, dito na siya nagsimulang lumabas. Okay? Now, in the later years, no, the number of criminals are growing, tumataas siya, no? At nagiging mahirap na nga dito yung tinatawag nating organization or storing of the photographs that are being taken, no, during the booking process, no? So dumadami ang kriminal, dumadami ang mga photos na kailangang kunin at kailangang imbakin, kailangang iayos, no? So doon na tayo nagkaroon ng problema on how we could effectively file, no, or how can we effectively store the photos that could be used, no? That could be parang pwede mo siyang buklatin just in case there's a need to do so, no? Halimbawa, somebody had been a victim of a crime, no, and he want to look into the different pictures of those inmates, baka mamukhaan niya kung sino yung nabiktima sa kanya, no, things like that. So there should be an efficient way of archiving all these photos, no, of those inmates, prison inmates therein, no? So we need a system. That's basically the problem that we are citing. Because of the increase of criminals, the number of criminals being put into prison, there's an increase also on the numbers of photos being taken. So there is a need for us to develop a system on how we could effectively store and archive this photograph, no? And it should be easy to access all this file, no, just in case there's a need to check it, no. So that's when the concept of the so-called drugs gallery, no, was born, no. Ito yung mga tinatawag nating kumbaga photo album of the criminals or inmates in prison they're in. So they had developed already a system that where the photographs are being grouped based on the type of the offenses they committed. Let's say, for example, this is where all the photos of individuals who committed a crime or who was confined in this prison that had committed property crimes, crimes against person, crimes against chastity, and so on. Then they were arranged according to according to their family name or according to the year where they were arrested, they were put into prison, things like that. So they have already a filing system, a working filing system during those years. So that's the concept of the Rogues Gallery. No? Now, we made mention of Alfred Bertillon while back. No? Why we made mention of him? Actually, he was again a big contributor, no? Big contributor into the field of forensic photography, as he was the first person to realize or pointed out that actually we could benefit from the concept of forensic photography, but it's very futile, no, that we use this identification system without a standard, no, without a standard on how are we producing these photos, no? So what Alphonse Bertillon here is pointing out is that wala tayong standard on at what specific angle should we took the photograph, di ba? Paano ba natin or ano ba yung standard sa pagkuha ng photograph? Kailangan bang naka-side, nakatalikod, nakaharap, pataas, pababa, things like that. So we need to set a standard for that. No? In terms of measurement, di ba? How can we be able to give data for future use in terms of the height, so that we can approximate the height of the person even in the photographs. So he basically used yung grid lines na yan para magkaroon tayo ng actual perspective on how, on the measurement of the person being photographed. And he talks about lighting, dapat clearly visible yung different parts of the facial features of the person being taken, whose photograph is being taken. So yun yung mga pinoint out ni Alfred Bertillon. So he provided a set of rules that should be followed when taking photographs. When taking photographs of those individuals who are accused of committing crime, or who were convicted, things like that. So actually, Alfred Bertillon was considered or named as the father of mugshot because of this. So he provided the standard way of taking photograph for criminals, and that was widely adopted. Since we know for a fact that Alfred Bertillon was the authority when it comes to forensic or criminalistic during that time, so his idea was widely adopted. So that gives now the standardization on how photographs are being taken from criminals. Ngayon, we also are going to discuss the significance of forensic photography on the field. So we know that when it comes to recording the crime scene, we have photographs and crime scene sketch as the best way, or the most effective or simplest way to record actually the face of the crime scene, face of the crime scene during the early days. By the way, forensic photography, as we made mention, is not only focused on taking photographs of criminals, but we have also the field crime scene photography, wherein the concept of photograph can be used in recording the crime scene as well as the evidence present therein. So for this specific discussion, we are going to tackle the significance of forensic photography in crime scene investigation. So with regards to crime scene investigation, as I've stated during the last discussions that we have in terms dito sa field ng forensic photography, napakahalaga ng tinatawag nating records, or the preservation of the crime scene, in terms of how the crime scene exactly look like when the crime was committed, and what are the important details that are present into the crime scene that could have been missed out by the investigator during the conduct of initial investigation. So napakahalaga nun. So to aid that problem, or to solve that problem, we have crime scene sketch. We are using that para meron pa rin tayong detailed information with regards to the appearance of the crime scene when the crime was committed. So yeah, although there's a limitation, sabi ko nga, there's a limitation for crime scene sketch, and that could be answered, or photographs could be a bridge to fill, or it could be filled, that gap could be filled by the concept of photography. So they are very useful with each other. They aid each other in effectively recording the crime scene for the investigating officer. Then of course the very purpose of photography, crime scene photography, is actually to provide a true and accurate record of the crime scene and physical evidence that are present doon sa crime scene when it was committed. So as we have stated, no matter how good the memory of the investigator was, meron pa ring limitation yan, because we are just human beings. So that's where the idea, the significance of police photography or forensic photography comes in. At dito siya sumisingit. Dito natin nakikita yung halaga nito, kasi nga nakakatulong siya sa pag-preserve, no, doon sa actual appearance of the crime scene, no, when it was committed. No matter how long had passed already, how long had time passed already, nandun pa rin yung accurate record natin for the crime scene. So it's very significant, no. Specifically, no, it is actually significance in the following circumstances. Like for example, yan nga, yung sabi natin kanina, it provides an initial appearance of the crime scene, and it provides a long-lasting memory, no, long-lasting detail, no, for the criminal investigator to go back into, just in case they wanted to reconstruct the crime scene on their mind, just in case they miss something out while they are conducting the initial investigation. So it's very useful for that manner, no. Then we also have here, no, to record an aspect of the crime scene which cannot be preserved in its primary state, no. There are instances that evidence will only there are instances where evidence are highly perishable, no? Madali siyang mawala, madali siyang ma-distort, no. Say for example, vehicular accident, no. For vehicular accident or traffic accident, things like that, you know, the skid mark, na yung skid mark na yan are very important. We need to record the appearance of such skid mark before maybe some rain will come and wash it out, no, or hindi naman kaya daanan siya ng iba pang passing vehicles and so on. So madali siyang ma-alter, madali siyang ma-distort. We need to preserve that immediately. Yung mga ganitong klase ng evidences, guys, dito pumapasok ang halaga ng police photography kasi you can take a photograph of that evidence, then okay na, no? Take a photograph as long as the rules are being followed with regards to how should it be, how should the photograph be taken, at what angle dapat siya makuha, ano yung dapat katabi niya, like measurement, we have the triangulation, things like that, dapat masunod siya, then this is very efficient, no? Same thing, you know, for traffic accident kasi dapat mabilisan lang ang proseso. No, it's not like usual indoor crime scene, or yeah, pag indoor crime scene kasi pwedeng you can cordon the crime scene, pwede mong lagyan ng crime scene, you can isolate the area for maybe for an hour, for a day or so, no, pwedeng you can do that, you can isolate that area, no, you could prohibit access to that area for an extended period of time. But for traffic accident, which usually transpire in a very busy streets, in very busy highways, no, you could not do that. Hindi mo pwedeng i-isolate yung area ng matagal kasi that would cause traffic jam, no, and things like that. So dapat mabilisan lang. You need to have an accurate depiction of the crime scene, then release the crime scene immediately kasi nga that is a public road, no? Kailangan nadadaanan siya, not to cause much of inconvenience for the commuters, no, and the drivers, no, so kailangan mabilisan. So this is where crime scene photography, specifically forensic photography, also will comes into to aid into this manner. So kunan mo siya ng picture, no, you record all the necessary data, you took photo of all the pertinent evidence, pertinent object that has something to do with the crime scene, to the crime that has been committed, then you can release immediately the crime scene without worrying that some of the detail might not have been properly recorded, no? So you don't need to worry of that as long as you have the aid of photography or police photography, no? Another significance of police photography is that it makes visible certain as it makes those invisible evidence become visible, such as for example those parts or those evidence that are not readily visible by our naked eye, na hindi natin makuha agad unless we look at a specific angle, or we use a specific lighting and so on, no? Like for example, if we're talking about document, di ba merong mga secret ink, no, na kailangan natin gumamit ng specific type of light para maging visible siya, or hindi naman kaya mga abrasion mark, mga tool mark, no, which are not readily visible but we can we can actually witness that if we're just going to look at a specific angle and we use a specific type of light, things like that. So uh, photography actually make that easy, no, to access those things, no, kasi if nakuhanan mo na siya ng photograph and when you're going to present it as an evidence, then the jury, no, the court, the lawyers, the suspect could easily access or look at the object, no, without tilting their angle and so on, kasi nga nakuhanan mo na siya, di ba? So if you wanted to present, like for example, a bite mark, syempre ang bite mark, gaano ba katagal bago maghilom yan? You want to preserve that kasi pag naghilom yan, wala kang record of that, that could be a big blow to your case, no? If you wanted to point out that there is some tool mark present into the doorknob of a certain door, no, that was pinasok ng magnanakaw, so you could took a photograph of that, you will show that to the court as an evidence, no? So those are some of the advantage that photography or police photography can bring into the court, no, and can bring into the law enforcement field, which is I think very important, no. Then let's look at the advancement of forensic photography, no. As we all know, nag-advance na tayo, no. Before we have the analog camera, no, yung single lens reflex camera, no, analog pa, yung mga by film pa ang ginagamit, no, hindi pa talaga siya totally digitalized and so on. Those are the types of camera before that are being used, no? And if we go back earlier, no, kung mas bumalik pa tayo sa talagang sagad ng nakaraan, like early or late early 20th century, no, late 19th century, well, mas mahirap pa actually ang pagkuha ng photograph before, no, kasi kailangan mo ng so much time for the exposure, no, so much processing and so on, so you cannot really avoid to commit mistakes on those moments kasi of course the equipment is very low tech, no, time is very crucial, and those things na napakalaga, and there's a limitation on the things that you can take photograph into, no, for fingerprint, for secret writing, hindi mo pa yung makuha ng photograph, unlike today that we have developed, we have the concept of the UV light or UV rays, no, we have the infrared light and so on, that gives another breadth, no, kumbaga that adds into the capacity of forensic photography. No, so with that, these are actually are the advancement that are made in the field of forensic photography, that even those we cannot visibly see, no, hindi natin makita, ay pwede nang maging visible with the specific use of light. Then we could record that by again having a specific type of film, no, having specific type of filter. So it was enhanced, no, nag-advance ang ating forensic photography, as well as, no, as we have stated, the shift between DSLR or yung mga digitalized camera makes us more capable of taking multiple shots, no, kasi diba the principle in taking photographs in forensic photography, take as many photos as you can, no? That's the idea. Kasi nga, you don't know what works, no? Baka mamaya isang kuha mo lang ng photograph, no? Akala mo okay na, sapat na yon. Then pagtingin mo pala nung na-develop, blurred pala siya. Di sayang din naman, no? Hindi mo na pwedeng balikan yung crime scene kasi pag once na i-release mo na, wala na, contaminated na yon, no? So with the advancement, no, nagkaroon na tayo ng digital camera, no? We're not relying much on the film, but rather we are okay na, no, you can take multiple shot if in case, no, hindi maganda yung kuha mo, you can pwede mo na siyang makita agad na hindi mo na kailangang hintayin pang ma-develop yung film bago mo siya makita, no? So those are the advancement. Actually, it makes the job of the law enforcer easier in terms of recording the crime scene kasi nga if you commit mistake, you can adjust immediately, like for example, the focus was not properly set, no, pwede mong i-adjust yan because you're using now the digital camera, no, so it's not necessarily a bad change, no, it's not a bad change, but actually it's a positive change that had happened, no, because of the technological advancement of the cameras that we are using today, no. Even nga, di ba, we can use already our mobile phone to record evidence, to record the image of the evidence, di ba? Even with the use of different type of lens, okay. So for example, the evidence was too tiny to be seen by the naked eye and to be recorded by the camera. So we have a specific type of lens. Though either we go for macro photography or photomicrography. No, we can zoom in into times 10 magnification, things like that. So those are all positive, the positive innovation that had been made into the field of photography that also benefited the forensic photography, the field of forensic photography. Okay? So, yun lang guys ang mga pag-uusapan natin ngayon, no, with regards to the advancement of forensic photography and its impact, no, to the current situation that we have now in terms of the application of forensic photography. Okay? So, if you have a question with regards to the topic I discussed, no, feel free to comment on the comment section. No, if there are clarification that needs to be done, no, please ano lang, you just message me. Okay, so that's it for today guys. I hope I was able to impart some knowledge with the topic that we discussed, no. If you have questions, as we have stated, approach me, no. Thank you. That's it for today. See you on the next part of our lecture.